Welcome to Batchademia,
a podcast so educational it could be a university class.
With your hosts,
Danielle Dick McHugh,
Kim Hannah,
and Bill Henninger.
Hey everybody, happy post-Thanksgiving. We did it. We made it through a season of Bachelor in Paradise that seemed never ending. And we're here to recap the whole season, the last half of it. Super fun, super awesome. And I'm coming to you live from a public library, so don't forget to support your public libraries, everybody.
The amount of commitment that you are showing going to the public library to do this is incredibly braggable.
I know. I had to shower this morning and then get into my car and come into town so I could have working internet and then a library and then reserve a space. And I'm going to disappear for a hot minute in about 8 minutes to renew the space that I'm in. It's very exciting. Way to go, public libraries. Okay, so let's get started. I have a question for all of you. After the episodes that we watched this week and the last half of the season, we saw everybody come back for after the final rose or whatever they call it when it's Bachelor in Paradise. And so I have a question for you based on Tuesday night's episode. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
What do you think what do you think Logan looked like after the rose ceremony with his turtleneck and his blazer? Because I'm going to answer first. I thought he looked like Diane Keaton in all of the movies that Diane Keaton has done in the last 20 years. That's what I thought.
I feel like that was the best not expected interpretation of all of them I saw. I did not see that one coming. And then when you showed me the picture when you were at our house, I was like, oh boy. Yeah.
Yep. What did you guys think he looked like?
So my immediate thought was that he looks like the villain from Minions. And then I looked up the villain from Minions and he kind of looks nothing like the villain from Minions.
Isn't he doesn't have hair, right?
He doesn't have hair, which I do think was an important piece of the Logan appearance transformation. Mm-hmm. And so it misses that, but it does have long legs. The Minion villain has long legs, and we all know that an important feature of Logan is that he's tall. And then it also is in a suit. There's something about its turtleneck and the villain's turtleneck and stuff like that. Logan was given some mad villain vibes, even though I think that he was redeeming himself a bit in the reunion episode.
Are you thinking he looks like Gru?
I think that's what she's saying, yes.
Okay, I thought that too. Yeah.
I speak fluent Danielle, guys. I speak fluent Danielle.
I watch these things nonstop. Minions is one of the movies we watch in the van when we go on trips.
Okay.
And yet somehow it's I've learned to block things out enough that my kids are watching that despite having had it on for hundreds of hours, I don't really know character names or anything like that. Loosely plots,
I got the Gru vibe too. And then my next thought was but he doesn't have hair.
Yeah.
I got 80s villain. I feel like we all kind of agreed on the 80s villain at our house. And that was really what he was giving off with the turtleneck and a Bond villain maybe, but that'd be in the 70s and 60s. But yeah, very Swedish maybe, very sleek architect. I don't know if you've ever seen the episode of How I Met Your Mother when they bring in the other architect firm to redo the bank that Barney works at. And it's this Swedish architect firm. And I think they all have on turtlenecks and jackets and their hair combed back. And
it's the funniest thing, because I think all Logan had to have done is show up his regular kind of dopey self. And he would have just I think, come out on top
Oh yeah.
on this episode. And then he like rolls in with like the slick back hair and the turtleneck. And even though I mean, he was a little intense.
Yeah. He was kind of like that kid that comes back from like freshman year of high school from the summer and is like decided to switch from emo or jock to like sophisticated. And he came in and he's like started pronouncing words with the correct, like, diction for it's like, I had croissant today. And it's like, oh, it's a croissant, buddy.
He's the guy that does his study abroad, and when he comes home, he
Yes.
always talks about his study abroad and dresses differently.
When I was in Italy, I went to, and it's like, oh, Jesus, guy.
I ate when I was in Paris, I ate croissant all the time.
At the Louvre. Huh.
Magnifique. And you're like,
Yeah.
shut up. You're from rural Iowa. Calm down.
I love it.
All right. Yay.
Woo!
So
All right.
in essence, don't wear a turtleneck and a blazer because you look ridiculous.
Or do. Go off.
Or do and go all in.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to start us off with a concept that I think we all could talk about, and then I'm going to have to pop off real quick to renew my.
She's got to pump the meter.
So I'm going to kick us off, and then if I get quiet for a hot minute, it's because I'm putting my library card number back in the machine to use this space. My first concept number 1 is Kate. That's the conversation.
Kate.
What do we think about Kate? What was Kate's role on the show? Did we like Kate? Did we not like Kate? Do we have Kates in our lives? Let's talk about it.
Well, she paused. The public library.
Perfect timing. That was perfect timing.
Yeah.
I'll start out in general, not a Kate fan.
Really?
No, I mean, she was great for entertainment on television. But as like a human being, eesh.
See, I think I would be fine in our friend group with her, but I wouldn't want to date her. Our general consensus when we were watching the episode, and the season, was that she's the type of person that gets off on like having a guy that seems really masculine that she can just like pin down, right? And like insult him in front of people. Like I don't think I would do well dating her, but I think I would find her quite fun if she was one of our friends.
Oh. See, I find her like, I can't imagine myself friends with house, what are the housewife shows?
Oh, yeah.
She has strong that vibe, just like high maintenance, kind of shallow, like, and on top of that, really not self-aware to have shown up at the reunion episode after she said all of these things. She's been like, people have been calling her out on the internet for weeks about like how classist she is. And then she doubled down like at the reunion show.
Wasn't she the one who also said
I don't know what she said. I like it, the anticipation. Well, so you think you'd be friends with her though?
Well, I mean, I think she'd be the type of friend that in my friend group, I'd find her entertaining, because it seemed like everybody on the beach, besides the person she was dating, like genuinely liked her. But maybe they didn't. Maybe they just tolerated her. But like she was like kind of trying to be caring. I don't know. Yeah, I think her antics I would find funny, but she'd not be the person I'd call and be like, hey, you want to go out to coffee today or something like that.
She would be like a great friend to have around because she might give me a discount on Botox.
Yes.
Like there's like, you do have like those friends that like, it's kind of fun to have someone that is, you're like, oh, like I'm trying so hard to be a good human. It's really nice to be around someone that's just like not,
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think they're fun to be around for like once a month. You go out and drink with them. They say mean stuff about their partner. They get pissy with a waiter. You drink, they get in a fight with somebody, and then it's like, you're like, all right, I've had my one day with Kate. I'm fine. I don't need to see her for a while. But I think as a person, she's kind of horrible, right? I mean, she was
Yeah.
her comments about like how little money he made, and she was like, I need a guy with a big bank account and a big dick. I don't know, I might edit that out if I can figure out how to do it in post edit, just so I can do it like ABC. But I feel like all that was pretty ridiculous, and I couldn't tell, like, is that her or is she putting on?
Yeah, I mean, so she did finally issue an apology where she's like, my comments were really, classist and problematic. I had heard that she is like in the running for a television show that is a little bit housewife-esque. I can't remember the name of the
Really?
show. Yeah, and
Where's she live?
I don't know. I did read all of these things, but I'm like I ate 2 Thanksgiving meals 2 days in a row. Like, I can't retrieve useful information at this point. But I do think there's ways that she felt like she was playing that role,
She definitely seemed like she was trying to like ham it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
So do you have a concept that we should talk about, Bill?
I wanted to talk about the hero restoration journey of why am I blanking on her name now?
Shanae?
Yes. Yeah.
Shanae
kind of came away being a pretty likable person, right?
Yeah.
She left, she broke up with one of the twins, but I felt like the breakup was as kind as the breakup could be, right? Like,
she was a mess in that breakup.
Really?
Yeah, because she was like, what did she say? She tried to be nice, but then she started making isn't that when she was like, well, you're not a man because of how old he is?
Well, she said, I need a man. She didn't say you're not a man. And he said, I'm not a man. And she was like, well, I need these things. And it's like, I feel like he she was trying to be nice. And I just have this theory in breaking up with people. Okay. You break up with them and you try to be nice, and it is their option to take the olive branch of you letting them, get out with your dignity, or you can push back. And then they're probably going to be honest. And I felt like that poor young lad was like, how am I not a man? I mean, I live with my parents. And it's like, I think that is a legitimate concern. If you are I don't know how old Shanae is. Kim, do you know how old Shanae is?
She's 27, I think.
Okay, so she's probably getting close to where she's thinking long term, right? And I think you are well within your rights to be like, I can't date you. I'm not sure that you can be an adult for me, right? And I felt like she was trying to say that nicely. And I felt
like her intentions were there, but her execution was poor. But despite that, I do think she had gained enough credibility with us all that we're like, oh, Shanae just is kind of a mess sometimes. And we're all okay with it, but generally like her.
Yeah.
And I feel like, because this is a thing that you study, I can't challenge you on this, but I did not feel like she handled that breakup the smoothest.
Well, I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, it's not going into the Hall of Fame of breakups. I'll give you that.
I wouldn't be like, hey, we're talking about breakups today in class, and I'm going to share this example of a great breakup with our girl Shanae.
I'll allow it. Yes, I agree. That was.
I feel very cheated that not once did we hear or see her eat or mention shrimp the entire season.
Was she the shrimp person?
She was the shrimp person.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She was like, I had 4 shrimps. And I thought that I agree with you. That was not the best breakup. But it's also I think people like her because she's blunt. And it's I'm of the mind that you don't get to like the bluntness in somebody, or their kookiness or their strangeness, and then when it comes down to something emotional, be like, all right, but don't be you right now. All right, I need you to be a full functioning adult. And it's I just think you yeah.
I do think that her personality traits that before were really off-putting on the show did become endearing over
Yeah.
time. Like
Yeah.
as we've gotten to know her, like some of those same traits are like endearing, and you also recognize that she is more multifaceted than just those traits.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's definitely a redemption story still in Shanae.
Well, and you could see like with her and Genevieve, they became friends. And I think the thing that made them so opposed on The Bachelor was what brought them together. Cause I feel like they're both really loyal people. And like once they decided they were going to be friends, they seemed to like really stick together and look out for each other. But I have a feeling like that is what drove them apart, because they staked their claim and they don't back down. They don't take a second, kind of like what you were saying in the breakup. If she would have like taken a break and been like, how do I want to phrase this, instead of just being like, you're not a man. That being said, I don't think either of the twins qualify for manhood at this point.
No. Well, and I think that if Genevieve and Shanae had wanted to both date Aaron or both date Logan, what we saw on The Bachelor would be what we saw in Bachelor in Paradise.
Oh yeah.
Except for, I thought that it was interesting that there was that tension between Kate and Shanae for a little while. And that like plot line just fell off. And then you started seeing them like hanging out and talking and being friends too.
Yeah.
So I think that there was also probably a conversation there where they also repaired the relationship that we didn't see. But there was a little bit of that tension going on between Shanae and Kate for a bit.
That's
yeah.
true.
And neither of them seem like the person who can back down, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm surprised that both of them just kind of agreed to disagree. Maybe it was because Shanae just was like, I'm out on Logan. And if there only would have been one person, like Kim said, then you just fight for that one person because you're on the show and that's what you do. But when you have
Yeah.
other options.
And I didn't get the feeling that Shanae had really connected with anyone that she found worth
No.
fighting for like that.
She was there like I would be there for the free food and the free booze and the time on the beach.
Oh yeah. Kim, if you were going to date one of the twins, would you at this point in your life, would you be like, you're a man, I want you, or are they a hard pass?
They are a hard pass because I'm old
Oh.
enough to be their mother.
Well, isn't that also, well, that is also probably one of your requirements, but didn't you say that like one of your like 3 requirements for dating you is that they don't live with their parents?
Correct. That is absolutely correct.
I
Yeah,
was like,
they need a boat,
Access to a boat,
access to a boat. They don't live with their parents,
and they have a job.
and they have a job.
My standards are very low.
I'm not sure if the twins met any of those, to be honest.
I don't think they did. Oh, well.
I feel like some of the debate was if Instagram and Twitter or TikTok counted as a job.
It does for some people. It doesn't for me, though.
Yeah.
oh, that's wonderful.
Classic.
Danielle,
So-
your concept?
Okay, so one of the concepts that I wanted to talk about is kind of me putting Bill a little bit on the spot. But I couldn't quit thinking about the concept of chemistry. Like who has chemistry and like is the chemistry there with folks? And I wanted to know, like, is that a real concept that you can like study? Can you measure chemistry? Like, is that like a real freaking thing?
That's a good question. So I have never seen it like defined as chemistry, but there's like components of it, right? And so like physical attraction or attraction, I think that's probably a word we use for chemistry. What we know is that people who date long-term or find other people attractive are similar. And then you like people who like you. So I think those are probably the 3 things that become chemistry, right? The person's got to be someone you find attractive physically, mentally, emotionally. They have to be somebody who is also attracted to you. So there has to be reciprocity. And then they probably have to be similar to you. And those 3 come together to make chemistry, I would assume.
So I was thinking about chemistry. That's really helpful and interesting because I was thinking about chemistry and relationship to Genevieve and Aaron. right?
Mhm.
But they have this like super explosive like relationship in a lot of ways. Like it's either like super, it's intense either
Mhm.
on either side. And then they have like my favorite episode of the whole season was when they had their fight about itching and whether or not it's pain.
Yes.
And it became really interesting to me how people like were defining those moments. So some people were like, this is really unhealthy, this is a red flag, which I kind of tend to lean towards there. But other people were also like, oh, they just have like intense chemistry and like this is their moment, that like it's even like their fighting was part of like what fueled this like hot passion. And I definitely feel like I read enough crappy romance novels to know that that's like also like a theme sometimes. It's like intense, like that there's an intensity there. And so I don't know, what do you all think about Aaron and Genevieve and their chemistry?
Well, I think that intensity and chemistry and fighting can be fine until you are the friend that's with them having to listen to them fight all the time. And then you're like, for the love of God, can you just get speaking as we just came out of Thanksgiving, right? For the love of God, can you just stop fighting for 5 minutes or just be civil with each other while we're around other people? So that's my first comment on that. And then my second comment is, you kind of watched Genevieve like shut down several times when Aaron was talking, when they were having their arguments and things. And she just kind of like, just like he would keep talking at her and telling her different things. And then her eyes just sort of like glazed over and she just stopped. And that seems very problematic to me. But when they were good, they were good. But when they were bad, they were bad.
Yeah, I think if you looked online, people who had experienced an abusive relationship emotionally, they really like jumped at that. They identified her as, this is something that I did when I felt like I was backed into a corner. You just shut down when you get bullied by people like this. And so that's not good. That's not a recipe for success. I can see Danielle laughing at me because I've made a real statement right here. Like, that's not good when one partner shuts the other one down. But there is
agree.
like,
I support you in
yeah,
that statement.
but there is research that like, people who argue have happy relationships as long as they argue in a way where you improve the outcome of your relationship. And what I always tell class when I talk about this is like, that says nothing about how you argue. So there are some people that like to argue by like yelling and they get it out and then they go to their mutual corners, they come back and then they agree on a way to fix the problem. And then they're happy. There are people who have very measured conversations and they still have this outcome that improves it. So really it's kind of like, how do you want to argue and can the person you're with fight fair? And that's probably the biggest thing is like, can you fight fair when you fight? But we have a type of they have a type of relationship. It's called ludic love that they like defines kind of them, where it's like very hot and very cold and they're back and forth and
It
they're
seems like
passionate.
that'd be hard to sustain, right?
Oh yeah. I think so. Yeah, at some point you'd have to have some type of like stasis.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if like that type of love, like if that relationships last, or maybe they like after a while they work together and they kind of end up being like, we're just not going to argue about these things. Like maybe also like, how old are they? Like 24, 25. I used to argue about really stupid stuff when I was 24 and 25. And then I feel like you hit a point and you're just like, Gruber from, he's like, I'm too old for this shit. Kim.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mel Gibson, Lethal Weapon.
Yeah. You just get like way too, like, you're just like, this just isn't worth it to argue about.
yeah, I feel that at work too. Both personally, you like what is like worth, like like what you're gonna battle for like gets more and more narrow as you get older, and it's really freaking freeing.
Mhm.
I feel like in happy relationships, you just are like, at some point, there's some things that you're just like, I'm just doing it. I'm just gonna do it. I could stand on this hill and die, but what's the point of this argument? Like, I just want us to have a nice day. I will rinse the dishes, or I will do this. Yeah.
Yes, we're gonna be late again.
Yeah. What about you, Kim?
What was the question?
I don't know. I just want to make sure you feel involved.
What do you quit fighting about? What are you?
Your name box up
I
there
know.
looked
I'm
like
so
you were
sorry.
ready to
This
say
stupid
something.
Wi-Fi keeps cutting out. I feel like half the time I say something and then the screen freezes and I don't know if anyone's actually hearing me or if I'm just talking into a void, which is how I live my life most of the time. What was the question again? How do I feel about fighting?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It makes me very uncomfortable when people are just picking at each other
Yeah.
all day long, constantly. I want it. I just don't enjoy it, and I don't want to be around it. So,
What were they arguing about? Like,
who knows? It was different every time.
what was the actual the low level pain itch? What was that
Bug bites.
argument? What?
It was bug bites.
But like there was something else they were arguing. So we talked about this in class last week. We talked about conflict and communication, and I was saying, usually when there's an argument, there's actually a bigger thing. And it's like I've gone back. I just can't figure out what the bigger. I really can't think they were gonna like
The
go to.
only thing that I can think of is that Genevieve was like, no, that's a thing, and that like Aaron was not going to be corrected. Right? That like, I don't know that I think sometimes I think you argue and it's about like you're arguing about one thing, but there's like an underlying like larger thing. I think that there's a chance that they were just talking about something silly and like Genevieve was like tried to correct him and then he got like that it was more about a response to the dynamics and the power dynamics than it was about anything that they were arguing about.
That's what I was trying to get at with my very poorly worded question. I think they were having an argument about something that had to do with something totally else, but yeah.
I don't know. All right, Kim, what concept do you got for us to talk about?
Okay, I actually did 4 just in case you guys took my some of these other ones came up, but I think the concept I want us to talk about is, I don't know how to say it as a concept, but NC's behavior when Andrew was talking to Jacinia and how out of the realm of what is okay to behave I felt she was acting, and then how Andrew handled it like the cutie patootie that he is. So when she was, I know alcohol is involved, and I know
I hope so.
I hope alcohol was involved, but I was so embarrassed for her for how she was acting that, and I get secondhand embarrassment for people all the time, but I was so uncomfortable with her behavior that it wasn't even enjoyable to watch. And so I guess my concept is, what kind of behavior does that show about a person, and what can we learn from NC's mistakes?
I'm so glad that you brought that moment up because I think that it was a really uncomfortable moment, but I do think that there's probably a lot to both unpack there and also to learn from in terms of like what constitutes healthy or unhealthy communication behaviors. And yeah, I mean, one, it was like incredibly, it just felt very desperate, right? And I think I got most uncomfortable the moment that she was touching him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when she was repeating things, that was already uncomfortable. It's like you asked and he answered. You asked and he answered again. And he was like not making eye contact to try to create some like emotional distance there. all sorts of, nonverbals were also communicating, I need some space. And so then when I think she physically, like, I think grabbed his arm or touched his arm and like maybe tried to embrace him or something like that, it was pretty uncomfortable. And I will say, I think that if that scene, that like moment, right, the sex of the people involved would have been switched, that we would have had even more of a visceral reaction to that moment. So I think it's a clear indicator that, like, I mean, she just felt like she lost control of the situation, she tried to regain it and was trying to regain it in really unhealthy ways. And he was communicating. I thought Andrew handled it as gracefully as he possibly could, which probably is also what makes her look even worse.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't have much else to say, but I think you summed it up well, other than, I don't know if anyone's ever been in one of those situations where you're like trying to tell someone you're, it's probably not going to work out, and they're drunk, and it's like, he handled it well. Like, yeah.
Well, he said he stated his position and he held his boundaries. And I was like, also like, that takes so much energy to like, to tell somebody something that is disappointing and hard for them to hear, and then have to repeat it over and over again is so challenging. And yeah, I do think that moment, and particularly seeing that with a female, like with a woman sort of doing that to a guy, is like a really important, and I think in terms of like recognizing gender dynamics and power relationships, and how things can be unhealthy both ways,
Yep.
I kept wondering, like, would this have all changed if she would have just given him the space, right? Like, because I did have some sympathy for her. What if this was just a really bad drunk reaction, right? And she just totally out of character for whatever reason, it set her off. And if she would have just played it cool and been like, yeah, take your time, go talk to her. Because I felt like he wasn't had any intention of breaking up with her. Like, I felt like what really set the whole thing in motion was that she wouldn't respect his like conversation. Right. And then she seemed to be dictating what he was going to do. And I feel like at that point he was like, I need to get out of this situation and probably this relationship.
Well, it just kind of proves that, is she going to be like this every time he talks to any female that isn't her? Because guys have friends who are girls and girls have friends who are guys. And if this is her behavior, this is a toxic relationship.
Well, and I think they hadn't been together for very long, right? And
that was I think like, it's been 24 hours. Why is she behaving this way?
Well, and I mean, I think that sometimes there's like, I do think they get paid pretty well for each day that they're on the show. And I think what was so confusing about that entire situation is, one, you're like, you all aren't, like, we're nearing the end of the show by this point. Like, you all aren't getting engaged. Like, you're only staying for another couple of days, no matter what. And like, they weren't going to be two of the people on the beach at the end, And so that was kind of confusing. It was also really confusing because Jasenia was like, I had felt that Andrew had already communicated pretty clearly to her that he wasn't interested. And no, Jasenia did say that there was some deleted scenes, I think, on, she on her Instagram account and stuff like that, that made her response and her behaviors make a little bit more sense than it did to us as viewers. But because like all of that was really weird, we're like, one, you just were so sympathetic to Andrew because you felt like, you didn't feel like he was leading either woman on, like,
no, he was being incredibly honest and like boundaried, and
he was doing as well in this situation as I think anyone could ever be expected to handle it.
I recently listened, and I think I actually shared this with you, Bill, to a podcast. It's the Glendon Doyle's podcast, and on it she was interviewing Melissa Urban, I believe, about boundaries, and it was like one of the best discussions of boundaries that I had heard. And in it, Melissa Urban says, you know, that boundaries are about, they're not about you controlling other people. They're not about, you know, it's instead it's you saying, this is how I'm going to behave. And I like love that switch, that it's not, because I think that a lot of times people are threatened by boundaries because it feels like somebody's telling you what you can and can't do. So like, why, you know, like if I set a boundary with Bill, like you're like, well, why do you get to tell me what to do? Right. Yeah. But if it's the boundaries, like, here's where the boundary is for me. If you cross, like, you can do what you want, but this is how I'm going to react. Right. Like, this is how I'm going to respond. This is about me kind of making clear what my behavior or response is going to be in a situation. It was like a thing for me to have it reframed that way. But anyway, I do think that Andrew was really good at like thinking about boundaries. But if you're interested in boundaries, and check out that podcast, it's a really great episode.
If this were the Joe Rogan podcast and I was Joe Rogan, I'd be like 100%, 1000%. Yeah. Yeah, that's his name.
That man in my presence ever again.
But I agree with you. I mean, I think that's where, like, because boundaries are one of those terms that have now entered the general lexicon, right? And people are like, boundaries, but I don't think they understand what they mean. And I think they mean exactly what you said, is that this is my line. And when you cross my line, here's how I'm going to deal with it. It says nothing of your behavior. It gives you all of the agency in the world to operate how you want. It just gives you a roadmap as to when you operate this way, here's how I'm going to have to react for my own self
well-being.
Yep. So mine's a quick one. Who's going to stay together?
Are there that many people together anymore? Like, who? Let's just start there. Like, who's still together? So Danielle and Michael. Yep.
The dude with the earring. The guy that looks like he's like 12. Brandon.
Oh yeah, Brendan
and you know what? Hey,
Green.
I'll even throw in the chick who ended up with Mopey Greg. Let's put them together. Yeah, I'll count them.
Victoria and Greg.
Yeah, it was it might have happened while they were still filming. I have no idea. So do we think Michael's going to stay together with Danielle?
No.
Okay. That was a very emphatic no. Let's hear the reasoning, Kim.
I still don't think Michael is ready to date. And I think that once, because they don't live in the same area, and he's got a little one. So she's going to have to move to him, and I don't see her moving to Akron, Ohio.
Yeah, he doesn't live anywhere interesting. If I recall, it's not like,
I highly doubt he's going to I have a feeling that like his in-laws are still in the area. He's not going to uplift his kid away from the family. So she's going to have to go to him, and I don't see it happening.
So I think that they're probably the hardest one out of this group to predict. And I think that's because on one hand, I think that they're both they're mature, right? And I feel like they are also approaching this in like a really healthy manner, right? Let's be slow about things. Let's not have any of our milestones on the beach, right? Things like that. On the other hand, there's something about the two of them together that feels mismatched to me. And there's a part of me that thinks that it's possible that they bonded so much over their shared experience of losing a partner that some of the other things maybe aren't there. Right. And I mean, she did mention this, like their losses were very different losses, and I do think, though, the fact that she's aware of that and that they've probably discussed that. I mean, so it's like kind of this complicated thing where I see them as mature and like making some really healthy decisions in terms about how they move through things. But then like on the other hand, there is just something fundamentally, like she doesn't come across to me as sweet as he is. And I don't know, it's not anything bad about her necessarily, like because I think sometimes his like sweetness is a little much for me, right? But like I do think that there's like, he just seems like maybe he'd give a little bit more to this than I feel like I see her returning.
Interesting.
I don't know. There's just like something off there, and I'm trying to articulate that offness, and I don't know if I'm catching it.
She did say that she is moving to Akron.
Mm.
So on US News, they reported she's agreed to move to Akron. So I've always found him, there's something about him I find a little creepy, and I can't figure out what it is. I'm okay being in the minority on that one. There's just something about him. He's a little unsettling to me.
There's an intensity to him. Actually,
Maybe
that
that's
reminds
what it
me
is.
a little bit of like Brendan. Is it Brendan or Brandon?
I don't know.
I've watched how many hours of this person.
I know,
feel
yeah.
like, what, Brandon?
Yeah.
With Serene.
Yes. So I feel like there's like a similar intensity about the two of them that like with both, I think it would be a little hard for me to handle. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you love me so much, but give me some space. I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like Michael also seems ready to bolt. Like there's an intensity, but it also seems like he is ready. There's a point where he's just like, this is too much, I'm done. And it's like, it'd be hard to balance that out. Maybe that's what it is with me, is it's like, he wants to be in, and Kim, you've said this a lot. He wants to be in, he wants to get over, but then it's like, he wants to move past his significant other that passed away, but then it's like, I just can't. Maybe that's what it is.
What do you all think about the weird kind of tension between him and Sierra, and the tension? Have you all followed any of that online?
Well, no.
Okay, so
I realized I started that like I had something to say, but then I was like, I don't.
Kim, have you followed any of the like Sierra, Michael, Danielle drama?
No. I find Sierra and Danielle and Michael uninteresting to follow, so I haven't been following them.
Well, so what's really interesting is Sierra was really, there's a lot of criticism of Michael after he broke up with her on Bachelor in Paradise. And, Sierra had kind of come out and was sort of like, hey, he got a better edit than he maybe deserved. And then has been pretty critical because I guess Danielle was on, why do I always mess up her name? Bristow's podcast.
Caitlin Bristow.
Caitlin. I always want to call her like Kristen or Crystal. I don't know. So Caitlin Bristow's podcast. And apparently Danielle and gosh, I forgot her name.
Caitlin.
Caitlin. So Danielle and Caitlin were talking, and they like mentioned Sierra, but wouldn't even like say her name.
Oh.
And Sierra has just been really overtly like has said things on Twitter or Instagram or whatever social she's using about sort of like how like not cool this was, and that they're kind of, that both Danielle and Michael are getting this sort of like narrative that is much kinder than they actually are. But like what's interesting to me is, Sierra, who I think, by the way, is absolutely gorgeous. I like her skin, is so pretty. But I like, she's young, and there's like a bitterness there almost reacting to a lot of these things that's really off-putting. But I think that it's like kind of this weird little sector of the internet that is sort of like Danielle and Michael are like really not cool and they've been really awful to Sierra. And it's like kind of a weird, it's like a weird counter narrative that I like believe, but like also I'm like, I don't think this is that big of a deal. And like y'all dated for like 2 days, like let this go. Like
Mhm.
I don't know. So it's like a weird, I don't know. There's it feels really interesting to me, but I don't know why.
Danielle, do you got the last one?
Well, so I had two different things kind of left, and maybe one I'll just sort of say I'll do really quick, and then the other one's more fun. So, one of the things that I thought was visibly absent this entire season was anything around race. And I don't know if this is just like, oh, you know, we had to deal with it for a few seasons because like that's what like the world, you know, or the US, I should say, in particular seemed to be dealing with. And now like we're just over. But like it's kind of interesting because it was a very diverse cast. And I don't know. I was just like thinking about how incredibly absent any conversation about race seemed to be from, and I'm like, well, is it just because it's Bachelor in Paradise? But I do feel like Bachelor in Paradise has taken on, you know, whether it's, you know, Demi bringing on her girlfriend, or I do feel like there's been discussions about race on Bachelor in Paradise before. And I just thought that it was interesting that it was so absent.
I feel like they feel like that one, they feel like they don't have to address stuff. Like it just kind of happens, you know, even with Demi, it was just kind of like Demi's bringing on her girlfriend and it was like, let's just see what happens. And I feel like Bachelor and Bachelorette seems much more like we need to address this and make a statement. And
Do you think it's because more people that are the people that complain about when they actually do talk about those things are only watching Bachelor and Bachelorette and aren't watching Bachelor in Paradise? So they don't really feel like they have to talk about it as much on Bachelor in Paradise because it's a more open, fun-loving audience than the Bachelor and the Bachelorette?
I think possibly. I think that it's also possible because like the relationships are sort of like more, you know, like you don't have a set, you know, Bachelor or Bachelorette that has, you know, a race. Like,
there's less of a narrative. It's less like narrative driven that this person is finding love, where it's like people are gonna get together.
We're going to the boom boom room and drink margaritas for 6 weeks, baby.
As it should be.
I don't know. So like it's an interesting because I do feel like though it's been brought up a few seasons ago, but I also don't know if like race and relationships as like a narrative was just like maybe the hot thing in television, you know, or like you weren't gonna get off the hook not addressing it. And like I don't know. So I don't know. I was just really aware of that, and it just seems like, you know, like there's just no conversation at all about it, and but yet like has like a really pretty diverse cast. So what I did want to talk about was attractiveness. Okay, which is I was just thinking about how incredibly like attractive so many of these people are, and yet like there's like a real person, like, but there's still like a real person level of attractiveness. You know, like Jill is really unique looking, but also beautiful. Same with Genevieve, right? Like I felt like, and even Shanae, right? Like has a really interesting like facial structure. Like she doesn't have a skinny face. Like but she's beautiful. Like they're all beautiful. But like I was just like, and then I was thinking about it and I was like, I think this show has traditionally had people on that are attractive, but like people that like, you know, like I might know someone, you know, like that's actually as attractive as like, you know, some of the people on the show. We're like, maybe not all their abs, but I don't know that, like I could tell you in all of my friend circle, I don't know that I have any friends that like abs like on the show, but like I do think that like we're like there's some things that you can watch and you're like, yeah, like these are all like just models. Like I don't know any, like I don't know two people in real life that look like any of them.
I don't think they would let someone on the show that wasn't.
Attractive.
Yeah.
To the abs point, they must really starve themselves before they go on the show. They're also really young. Like it was easy to be that in shape when you were young, but they also must really diet. But you're right, like Demi was not like what you would, she's not like the person that you would like pick out of a line and be like, that's like model attractive.
Well, so you have somebody like, I don't know, Tyler Cameron, who I think, he is a model, right?
Mhm.
But even like you go through things and you're like, okay, Aaron is a really unique looking dude, right? Like he doesn't have a perfect hairline. He has a unique face, right? And I think, Johnny is maybe the closest to like, could look like a model, but even with him, it's like not quite. And there's like something that I really like about that. I don't even say that as an insult. Like I say that as like, I wonder if it's like done on purpose, where it's like, oh, one of us, if I had abs, could be on this show. Like when I, was 20. I don't know.
I would watch a season with Danielle on it. That would be the episode where they all get drunk and you pull out your planners and you're like, listen, guys, what goals do you have for after the show?
Like I would be like the person, like everybody else is just trying to have fun, and I'd be like, let's have a meaningful conversation about life. What would you be like on Kim?
Well, Kim would be useful. I'm good. I will answer for Kim. Thank you. Kim would be useful because they don't have cell phones. And she has the most like outstanding knowledge of pop culture of just about anybody I know. And so she would be so useful because you'd be like, who is in that movie? And then they will all look at Kim. Yeah. I think Kim might have left us.
I don't like, here's the thing that's funny is like for me, I was a very shy dater. I know like that seems like funny because I'm kind of loud and obnoxious sometimes, but like I would have been so uncomfortable with all of this. And I would have been like y'all, I gotta go to bed at 0:00. Like even in my mid-20s, I've been like, girls gotta go to sleep. Like, where's our routine here?
I'm not
have to bring books, because I would just bring books and sit on the beach and read for 6 weeks if I was allowed to.
Well, Kim, I don't know if you heard us, but I already said what you would be good for, which is you would be like Wikipedia, because you have more knowledge about pop culture than anyone I know. And so it'd be like, who played that? And you'd be like, oh, it's, Dame Duty Dent.
I could just recreate movies for us so that we wouldn't be bored with no entertainment. I would just act out the movies we want.
I'm not a take the bull by the horns type person. And so I think I would not be fun, because it would be like, you got to battle for people. And I was very like, yeah, they don't like me. They don't like me. It's fine. Like I would be, my usefulness was when I get drunk, I become quite mischievous. So I think I would be like stirring up shit between people and like.
Would you be like that Jordan dude? Like, would you like take a giant stuffed animal of someone's and like throw it into the ocean?
No, I would probably encourage someone to do it. Like I would be
you'd be the person talking, and you'd be the bug in Jordan's ear.
Yeah, that's drunk Bill is you don't have to deal with drunk Bill in that situation. In college, they called me the mayor of fun because it's like, you get me going, and it's like, hey, here's what we're gonna do. Let's convince this guy to steal a stop sign. Yeah. So
no,
I was kind of the enabler too, but I never wanted to do it myself because I was too scared of getting into trouble.
Yeah, no, I was the guy who let's get that person will do it. I can talk him. Stand back, folks. I'm gonna use
I
my
was the one with water in their purse for everybody.
Oh, I love that, Kim. I love that.
Well, that's the end of the season, y'all.
Woo!
It was a season.
It was.
so long.
Yes.
I actually enjoyed a lot of it. I just think that I could have still enjoyed it, maybe even enjoyed it more with 50% less of it.
It could have been 2 weeks shorter, easy. The whole what's his name and the
That stupid
Ashley.
couple.
They still haven't given me any closure on why I had to deal with that. I want that 2 hours back.
I feel like they only needed one episode a week.
Oh yeah.
I could have handled the length of weeks. I just
Yep.
don't need double episodes a week.
Yeah.
I have a family I need to see sometimes.
Well, I don't have that. I just have other TV shows I want to watch. All right, are we ready for our shout out?
Yes.
All right, we had a listener from Las Palmas de Gran, Canaria, part of the Canary Islands. So if you remember your biology lesson, the dude who did evolution, I cannot remember names today. Charles Darwin, I believe most of his research was done. See, this is why you need Kim on the island. Was done on the Canary Islands. So Origin of Species was written because of his experience there. So it's very warm there. It gets up to 80s. Not much going on. They don't have much industry, but they have a lot of culture, theaters.
I thought it was Galapagos Islands or something.
Was it?
Danielle can't pronounce anything.
Oh, the Galapagos.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Galapagos.
Yes, something like that. I read a lot and don't have to say things out loud. So
Let's see.
maybe it was
No, I think you're right. Damn it.
I just didn't want to confuse our listeners
No,
about
okay.
Charles Darwin. Was he at both places?
Stop. He did stop in the Canary Islands.
Okay.
But then he
both
was
Bill.
in the Galapagos, and it had to do with finches and stuff. Well, now this makes all my information about the Canary Islands just useless. They've got beaches, they've got parks, there's some architecture, airports, famous people. Who cares? Not Charles Darwin now. Thank you.
He went on vacation there.
He didn't really do anything. He sat and read.
He sat and read on the beach for 6 weeks, like me.
Well, Canary Island people, thank you for listening. I would like to know who this one rando from the Canary Islands is. So that's all I got for y'all.
This is amazing. Check back in a couple months. We'll be here, folks.
Yep. 378,517 people live there. That might be all the Canary Islands. Kim's gone.
I'd go to the Canary Islands.
I would too. All right, everybody. Happy holidays. I don't think maybe we'll do a holiday show. I don't know.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Kimbo is quickly hurtling towards being a homeowner. And so she will have impressive interwebs at that point. And
I better, because this is getting GD frustrating.
all right, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to Batchademia
with your hosts, Danielle Dick McGee.
Kim Hanna
And Bill Hennig.
All thoughts and opinions expressed on the show are solely those of the person who spoke them.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to the show, leaving a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Also, please share with your family, friends, colleagues, and other ardent Bachelor fans.
If you have comments or questions you would like us to address on the show, you can email us at batchademia@gmail.com.
Or on the Twitter with the handle @Batchademia.
Thanks for listening.